Yep.
Oh, you got us?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
so Hertz said who wrote it, and I raised my hand and I said, yeah, I'm the one that wrote it, and I'm glad that exchange happened because as reporters, you are writing a lot about these people, and some of the stuff is not going to be positive. And of course, I think especially after you write a piece like Jeremy and I wrote, that there's representation there. So if there's questions about it, like you're right there to have those conversations. So I'm glad he asked who wrote it, and I'm glad he asked why and what the relevance was. And I thought the exchange was fine. And what I told him was essentially like I wanted to provide context for what happened last season, so we have a better understanding of where we are now. And he gave his thoughts as to where the team is now and his view on those things. And so I think that's it's good and healthy to have those exchanges ultimately.
Interestingly, I thought Jalen came out looking good. Like I thought Jalen calling Wink Martindale was a positive. Like I took that as the guy has a zeal to learn and to figure out what was wrong. So he even called Wink Martindale.
Yeah, so the Wink stuff is really interesting on a couple of different fronts. One, because it does show that part of Hertz's unending desire to improve. And we've seen him reach out to defensive coordinators in house, where he would Jonathan Gannon as an example, and try to pick his brain to get a better understanding for why defenses are doing what they're doing. It's a different move to go to an NFC East rival like right after they beat you, while this season is still going, and reaching out and trying to figure that out. It's unusual. I mean, Martindale said that was the first time in 40 years that a quarterback has ever done that. Obviously, unique circumstances where they had just played the team. Martindale had just parted ways with New York. Hertz saw the opportunity there and he took it.
Yeah, I love that, to be honest with you. The thing that I found the most damning, and then that's going to be a question to you, but what I found the most damning was the lack of Jalen's apparent lack of respect for Sirianni's X's and O's acumen or his chops, as you guys wrote.
Yeah, we had a team source that believed that Hertz didn't really give Nick enough credit when it came to his offensive mind, stating that a lot of what we have done successfully, has come from Nick. I think the circumstances are really important to add in here, Anthony, because they're coming off of that Super Bowl year, right? And so they go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes. Everything's cooking, and everyone's feeling good about themselves. I mean, Sirianni, as an offensive mind, has to be feeling good about himself. What he has helped bring to this team elevated them to the highest station. Meanwhile, Hertz is coming off of a near MVP campaign. He just got paid $250 million. And so with winning comes some traps sometimes, in my view, where everybody gets a little bit elevated sense of self. And so Sirianni is thinking, and I think that you can understand the logic based on our reporting of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, this is my offense, and we're going to essentially run the same stuff out there. Meanwhile, Hertz is trying to get greater ownership of the offense because he's coming into his own, and now he's a bona fide franchise quarterback. Now he's teamed up with Brian Johnson, his guy, and they have different visions for how the offense is going to go. They want to become more multiple. They want to evolve it more. And the two respective visions just didn't coalesce. And then once of course, the pressure in the city is massive when you're coming off of a Super Bowl loss, especially. And so now when things aren't going right and the offense isn't materializing the way that you want it to materialize, and then losing starts to set in, then both sides go to the respective corners, right? Because now Sirianni is holding more private meetings with Hertz one on one, according to our reporting. Hertz is digging in his own way, and he's at times instructing players to do things that are different than are in the game plan. Some of it's circumstantial because of all the different pulls of a post Super Bowl season. And I think the hope, if you're an Eagles fan, is that now that things have cooled down, now that you are past that tense moment in time, you can kind of regroup, and with Kellen Moore serving as the buffer, everybody can move on smoothly.
the buffer kind of worries me. The fact that you would need a buffer. Does Siranni, what's his role within the offense? Like, you're the head coach and you're an offensive guy. I mean, is he completely distanced from it? Because like that would bother me. And then if I was Nick and I'm an offensive guy, like the last thing I'd want to be is not part of the offense and the game plan and, being hands-on. I mean, I know, Timmy, I've been covering this league for a long time. I know offensive guys. Those guys would rather quit than not be a part of their offense.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And part of the reason that Siranni was brought in was because of his offensive mind. And now we've reached a place where he doesn't have nearly as much say as he once did, Anthony. It's not to say that Kellen Moore has come in and created something totally different. And every time you speak with him, it's about taking what was good here and making sure that you don't get rid of that. Why would you? But then, complementing it and adding to it. And so there's still structure of Sirianni's offense in here. But Moore now has has added on to it, and now he's in charge of it. And so you see that, like, if on the field, it's more over the offense, as you would expect. He's got the walkie-talkie in his hand. He's calling in the plays to the quarterback. And Siranni is going station to station. So sometimes he's over the offense, but sometimes he's at special teams. Sometimes he's talking to Vic Fangio and looking over at the defense. Sometimes he's side by side with Howie Roseman having discussions. And then we know behind the scenes that instead of being omnipresent when it comes to the offensive stuff, like, he's not in the quarterback room as much. He's not in the offensive meeting rooms as much. He'll dip into like a position group meeting, as AJ Brown highlighted in his quote of, like, sometimes he comes in and, like, the young guys they get a little uncomfortable and they sit up.
It's so against anything that's done in the NFL. Like, I don't know. Listen, these coaches, like, Andy doesn't even look at the defense, right? Spags is the head coach of the defense. They talk 15 minutes a week. Oh yeah, what are you gonna do? Unless Andy has something, there is a division, and then the head coach never goes into these position groups. That's what's so foreign. I guess that's kind of why I'm like, this is very unique.
Oh, it's a fascinating. I mean, this season is fascinating, Anthony, on so many levels. Like, the boom bust of it is just totally massive. And it's new territory when it comes to the head coach. And, to your point, it's, Fangio's been doing this for 40 years?
Right.
So it's not like he's going to need, like, direct defensive input from Siranni.
No.
But where it can be helpful, I guess, is Siranni acting as more of the CEO coach, where he has an umbrella over it. He has an understanding for what's going on, and he's making sure it all sort of connects together, and that the culture is being built and is in a good place. And so I think that's the theory. And then, let's see what happens once they start playing some games.
We all silly like the mayor.